I think it was about 4 years ago when I first posed the question, what is a woman? I had started focusing on the scourge of gender ideology years before that and argued against it in a million different ways, making a million different arguments in a million words or more. And somehow over those several years, it never occurred to me to ask the most basic question of all. I had heard the phrase, trans women are women, so many times, and yet for so long, I never thought to respond, what does that mean? What do you think a woman is? What are you trying to say? 4 years ago, for whatever reason, it finally dawned on me. I realized I didn't need a million words, only 4. What is a woman? Now, once I realized that this is the question, really the only question we need to ask, the question that pulls down the whole edifice of gender ideology, I started asking it, and asking it more, asking it over and over again. I asked it for years on social media, in speeches and interviews. It was clear that the proponents of gender ideology, the architects of the current madness which is gripping our society, were not going to answer the question because they can't. And they had elected instead to simply ignore me, which was easy enough. So I reached a point where I realized that either I could keep shouting into the abyss. That's definitely an option. I do it all the time. Or simply give it up and move on with my life. That I can't do. I can't really give anything up. Or I could take drastic action. And I chose the latter option. If they wouldn't answer my question, I decided that I would force their hand. And so I hatched an elaborate scheme that over the past year has taken me across the globe and got me into the room with some of the leading quote unquote experts in the field. I talked to politicians, academics, pediatricians, psychiatrists, trans activists, surgeons, and many, many more. I went everywhere from San Francisco to the African wilderness. And yes, I did all of this essentially because nobody on the left would respond to my tweet. An overreaction, perhaps, but I don't believe in proportional responses, as you've probably noticed by now. Now, I've had to keep this project secret for a year. Finally, we can announce it, though. We announced it today, and there's still so much that I can't say and that will be revealed in the near future. We'll have a full trailer for it in the coming weeks, but for now, here's a very quick sneak peek. Watch. I have traveled all over the world for the past year asking one simple question. What is a woman? What is a woman?
What is it?
What is it?
I don't know.
People are laughing. Is that a dumb question? I've been asking everybody this, and almost nobody can answer it.
What is a woman?
What is a woman?
That's a great question.
If one person could tell me what a woman is. Congressman, thank you for being here.
I think this interview is over. Let's turn off the cameras.
I just wanted to know, what is a woman?
And you're not going to find out.
It's not a complicated question.
Now that congressman very much regretted inviting me to his office for a sit down. He was, not the only interview subject to regret their life decisions. I can tell you that. But I can't tell you much more than that when it comes to specifics. But I can tell you that all I did was ask the most basic questions. If gender ideology was going to collapse on camera, and it did in spectacular fashion, I wanted it to collapse under the weight of its own incoherence. I wanted the allegedly smart, highly credentialed advocates of this stuff to just bury themselves, and they did too. One line in scripture that I return to in my head over and over again as we film this project is Romans 1:22, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. I watched the wise make fools of themselves over and over again. In fact, much of the real wisdom that I did encounter, and I encountered some, you'll see that in the film also, came from simple, normal people, the kinds of people that the wise would say are fools. So we ask the question, how did the left get away with propagating these ideas for so long while somehow never having to answer even the most basic questions about it? How did they conquer Western society with an ideology that falls over and shatters into 1,000 pieces with a simple flick of a finger? It's this enormous, seemingly imposing, totally ubiquitous thing, something that has reshaped our civilization, changed the way people see themselves and their own species. And yet all you have to do is walk up and just poke it. Just poke it. And it pops like an overinflated balloon. How could something so flimsy so thin have so much success? The answer is, for one thing, people are scared. It has threatened the sane into silence. That was something that became abundantly clear as soon as I set out on my What is a Woman journey, because everywhere we went, almost everybody that we talked to, even the ones who knew the truth and were willing to say it, even them, most of them still looked kind of from side to side and whispered like they were spies passing state secrets. There's a lot of fear out there because the left is always standing in the middle of the crowd with a bomb strapped to its chest, threatening to hit the red button if anybody dares question them. But what you find so often is that it's a dummy bomb strapped to a dummy. People are afraid of a phantom. Now, it's true that the left owns all the institutions, and so they do have the power to punish you. I myself have already basically accepted that at least some of my social media platforms will not survive the release of this film. I'm already expecting that. This movie is somewhat of a kamikaze mission in that way, which is why I wanted to get it right, because it might be my last act. Who knows? At least on when it comes to my access to the internet. I know there will probably be some steep consequences, especially considering the people who we embarrass in this film and how badly we embarrass them. So the fear people have is not entirely imaginary. And yet the fear has scared people to such an extent that they think they can't even talk about this at all. They treat the subject of what a woman is, what biological sex is, like it's literally radioactive. The fear causes people to fall silent, and the silence only emboldens the ideological terrorists even more. The second factor is that the left is very good at making simple things seem complicated. Not just on this issue, but all issues. What they do is they try to drown you in jargon and buzzwords and caveats and exceptions to the rule and any other ball they need to throw at you to distract you from the topic at hand. Soon, before you know it, you're off the path, you're knee deep in the weeds, can't remember where you were going or why or what you were talking about. And then, when you're out there in the muck, off the trail, confused, they'll come along and say, you see, this is all so complicated. You should stop thinking about this subject. Just leave it to us. Rest your puny little brain, child, and let us think for you. Trust the experts. What they don't expect is that you'll take them up on it and actually go talk to those experts and ask them the questions they're supposed to be able to so easily answer. Actually ask the questions. You know, by that I mean, don't just sit there and let them talk at you, but ask the questions. Apply some skepticism to what they're telling you, just a little bit. That's not what they're expecting. That's exactly what I did. And the results are tremendous, as you'll see soon enough. Hey, listen, hit the subscribe button. Do it right now. I demand it. And I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.